Hello, I'm Ibrahim Imam, and welcome to this episode of the Neurology Lounge podcast. In this episode, we will continue our exploration of muscular dystrophy. Today, I'll be speaking with Antoinette Stubbs, who prefers to be called Annie, I believe,
Yeah, please.
about her experience of caring for her son, Calum, which she narrated in her excellent book titled Braveheart. Annie is a legal assistant who also describes herself as a mother, a grandmother, great-grandmother, cousin, friend, work colleague, and sister. She does not see herself as a professional writer or a professional poet, but she has found her own way of expressing herself fully through words. It may not be evident, but she is now 71 years old and recovering from a minor stroke she suffered a few months ago. And her background, she also went through radiotherapy. Annie considers herself a soul who has been blinded by pain, but no pain is as devastating as the death of her son, which we'll be discussing today. But she has a very positive outlook from having wonderful friendships, people she calls her earth angels. And she sees a lot of beauty in the world going along with the hardships, which is kind of seeing both sides of it. Her philosophy is that if we open our eyes where we were once too blind to see and take the barriers down from within, we can see the world in a totally different context. She's also guided by the philosophy that there is so much to learn. We are all one. The circle is everlasting. Annie Stubbs, welcome to the Neurology Lounge podcast, and I'm most grateful that you accepted my invitation.
Thank you. Thank you.
My first question usually is why did you write the book? Why did you decide to put pen to paper?
Well, after Calum passed, obviously it was an horrific time. And the way that I coped with my grief initially was to write my experiences each day, basically. And I knew that one day I was going to put this down in writing, in a novel, in honor of Calum, because I thought he was very brave at the time. And obviously that came to me following. So basically as a legacy for my children and grandchildren, and to help other people realize that life can move forward if they wish to read, because it can be hard for somebody to actually read while someone else has suffered with this and their child was diagnosed with Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy. So, there is hope in darkness.
Yeah, that's the message kind of that comes through in the book. And
yes.
Yeah. How did you go about writing it? How did you do it?
Well, it took a long time, and that wasn't due down to grieving, because I find it easier to transcribe how I feel, to write down how I feel, than to actually voice it. But COVID really gave me the time, unfortunately or fortunately, to be able to sit down and think, right, I'm going to do this. And mentally, I was strong enough to do that at this point in time, yes.
You said it took you over 15 years to write it, saying
yeah,
a long and arduous process. Has the writing been cathartic?
Cathartic, yeah. Yes. But I'd grown such a lot in those years anyway, as a person, and grown to accept that I don't feel that death is the end.
And you still think a lot about him?
Every day.
Yeah.
Yes, I speak to him every day. Whether it helps me or not, but he is a person to me, and I speak to my colleagues at work. My grandchildren, although they might not have known him, they know all about him. So yes, I feel that he should be honoured. That's my son, and I'm sure other parents would feel the same way.
You talked about how accepting his death, you saw it as merely a step into another dimension.
Yes.
But you still feel he's here and there at the same time, is that?
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
I do. If I always say, like, sometimes if I feel that he's not around, just give me a sign, just show me, say something will happen. So that is my belief, and I truly believe it. And I write spiritual poetry, and I feel that it's come from him, basically. Although I did write before that, so but it's enhanced my words, to put it like that. Yeah.
and you did, I mean, it's going to talk about his diagnosis and the journey, but one of the points you made was you saw death as a new beginning. Is that something that helped you to cope with losing him?
Eventually, yes. Yes. Obviously, those first few weeks and months are really hard because you look for that person, you want that person there. I'm supposed to care for him. I'm his mum. Where is he? But I've always had these spiritual feelings.
Yeah.
So I did kind of look down that path to believe that he was, and he gave me so many signs afterwards. So, I feel he did. Yeah. And other people saw it. So, yeah. And that helped me to cope with the fact to know that he was somewhere and I don't have the sole right to look after him and that he chose me, and that to be his mum, which is an extremely high privilege, and now he's with other people that are looking after him now, or he's looking after himself, I hope. Yes, he is.
Okay. Let's go back to how his illness started. You said you first noticed that a couple of years after his birth, he started struggling with his walking and he started falling.
Yeah, he was like, I mean, I've got 4 children, and he was like, didn't start walking until he was about 14 months, which was the others were about 9 to 10 months. I know, but I wasn't particularly looking for that. But when he was walking, he did start to stumble. And as time progressed, he was struggling to get up the stairs. People noticed it as well. So that's when I decided that I needed to perhaps go and have him checked over at the GP.
Yeah, you talked about this. He was he also suffered in school on account of this walking difficulty. What problems did he have in school? What was going on?
Well, because I've always worked basically was at nursery school, which became, an infant school. And I feel that if a child is weaker, other children will pick up on that, and they do, and they like kind of push him over and he couldn't get back up. And I know it's just children, it's probably not malice, but Calum was unable to kind of look after himself in that way. And when he was having the teachers noticed it as well, so they would tell me what had happened. And I don't think, to be honest, they knew how to deal with it at all.
They didn't
So,
address the issue at all, did they, in school?
no, no, no. I mean, they told me he'd been pushed over, or if he'd fell over and
Yeah.
bumped his head or whatever, I would come out and pick him up and take him to the hospital to be looked at. But they didn't know how to address the issue. Apart from they wrote a letter to the GP. So that's when it all started evolving, basically, the diagnosis.
You talked of the very sad incident where he couldn't get up and get to the toilet on time and ended up boiling himself.
He did, yeah. He soiled himself, and I had a call from the school, and he was just sat up a corner with the same trousers on, and they hadn't even changed him. I mean, those days they were allowed to, maybe nowadays they wouldn't. It was possibly the right thing to do, but I felt they could have cleaned it. And how was his dignity? I was just thought, this is not right. This is not fair.
And how did he take himself? How did he cope at that time? How? Was he down, or he just kind of took
No,
it?
he was all right in himself.
Mm.
No, he just got on with life. Like, honestly, he didn't complain ever. He was just such a superhuman being, you know. From being small, no, he wasn't down. He wasn't depressed.
He just took it in his stride.
He took it in his stride, yes. And he didn't really, when he was younger, he didn't really question anything. And I would say he didn't really question through his life.
Interesting.
But he wasn't silly. He was quite an intelligent young man. So as he got older, he could look on the internet,
Okay.
which is, I'm presuming, what he did. Well, he did, yes.
And very early on, apart from falling, I mean, we mentioned, is this difficulty getting up, which was what the school report also noted. Was this something you found at home, that he just couldn't get up from the floor?
Yeah, he was struggling to get up, yes, definitely. But because we had siblings around as well, they would just help him up. And then once he was up, he would toddle along, and he was pretty much okay then. It was just the falling over that became more and more regular as his height grew, as he grew. Yeah.
On the first team, the GP referred him to as the orthopedic team, which
He did, yes.
meant to do with bones. We do get a lot of referrals, which are meant to go to orthopedics, coming to neurology, and the other way around. Um, is this ignorance of what neurologists do partly responsible for this? They didn't think, let's refer to a
Not
neurologist.
initially, no. No, as I said to you, he was referred to an orthopaedic surgeon, and maybe that, but the GP wouldn't, I don't think they knew what they were looking for, basically, or why this was happening. So when we went to the orthopaedic surgeon, he just said something about his gait, if I can remember, and that would improve with time,
Okay.
which obviously it didn't. So nothing was mentioned to me at that point about muscular dystrophy now.
Well,
So I have no idea.
yeah, I mean, to be a very good GP to think about it at that stage.
Yeah.
I suppose now,
Yeah.
yeah, falling. Well, they might have been worried that after the falls, he might have broken a few bones, I presume. Um,
Well, his falls weren't that severe, so I don't, at that point, I wouldn't have said that, no, but
maybe
yeah, I don't think the GP knew what he was looking for, to be truthful. And that's fine.
yeah.
We have to knock things out to get the right answer, don't we? Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yes.
Specialists, and they have to pass you on. Eventually, you get to the right place. So the consultant who saw him, the orthopedic surgeon, picked up a sway back of his knees, but nothing else. But he did opt to follow him up, wasn't it? So it's kind of a reasonable thing.
Yes. Yes. But as far as I remember, he never went back because I think things were progressing. And I believe that this wasn't right. So he was referred to the paediatric unit.
And they straight away suspected this was Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. He was sick.
Well, yeah, the Dr. Lithgow, her name was, she actually suggested that it could be, because we were talking about his symptoms, explain what was happening. She had a quick look, but he was referred to Manchester Children's Hospital for a biopsy. Yeah.
And that kind of confirmed that this is what this
Yes,
was.
it did. Yeah.
And after learning about what it was, how much did that diagnosis hit you emotionally? How did you feel all of a sudden realizing?
Devastated. Devastated, because obviously we had to go back to see the consultant who gave us, at the time I was married, the diagnosis. I just remember going to have a cup of coffee somewhere, and it was like a surreal world, and thinking this can't be happening. It can't be happening. And then we had to pick him up from the childminder. So I had to tell this lady, it was lovely. And then I remember taking him home, and I couldn't tell him. He was young, he was 7. I'm not going to tell him, this is why. I just said that he would need to have hospital appointments to address what was wrong, to help him with his walking. But I didn't know a lot about it either. So, it was learning by other people and by seeing what I was seeing and coping. But yes, no, it was devastating. I remember seeing him in bed at night and kissing him on his forehead because he was asleep and thinking, I don't know if I can cope with this, but you do, obviously.
So that must have given you a bit of strength, that trust you had in him, even at that age.
Yeah, definitely. But you need to find your strength, because you've got to be strong for your child anyway. As a mother, you've got to be. But it just created so many other not problems as such, but how do I tell his sister? How do I tell his brothers what? It was quite a difficult time, and I didn't do all that in a week or a day. It was over time.
Well, it's a slowly progressive condition, so maybe you had a bit of time to do that.
Yes.
You wrote at the time that the pediatrician's main concern was not Calum, but the effect his disease will have on your relationship with your husband.
Yep.
Did it impose any strains, if I may ask?
I think it did. I think it does in most people that have got a disabled child. You will always find, not always, obviously, but mostly that relationship breaks down, because you can't give your whole attention to this person. Neither should you want it, really. My focus was mainly on Calum and my children, but it wasn't a strong marriage anyway. And I don't really want to go into that, but it wasn't. So basically, that was the beginning of the end, I would say. I don't think he could cope with it anyway, to be honest.
I
can't speak for him. He's not here now.
Yeah. I guess men, probably, I'm being sexist, probably men don't have the
I don't know. I can't speak for all men, but and I know a friend of mine, very dear friend of mine, whose son, he's left the world now, and he had Duchenne dystrophy, and her marriage broke down. That some men find it difficult. Maybe some women do as well. I can't be sexist. It's how you're made up, isn't it? What you're composed of, what you can do, where you can find your strength from.
I was just struck by the fact that was the first thing the pediatricians were worried about.
Yeah, she was, because I think she needed that strength to be there to help cope with the journey as a couple.
It was kind of preparing you as well, I suppose.
Yes, because we needed to be strong to look after.
Yeah.
Well, to face the future, basically, isn't it?
Yes. You thought the disease came down through your mother's side, but you said the family tree was twisted and gnarled and belonged in Holland, I suppose, where your root is. Was there a family history of it at all? Did you
discuss? Don't know. I can't answer that one, because I never had that information from my mother. And she took, basically, Duchenne dystrophy is carried down from the female to the male, and it can be hereditary. It doesn't always have to be, which in our case it wasn't, but I couldn't give the consultant or anybody any family history because it wasn't given to me.
Yeah. And
that was quite hard, actually. But when we had blood tests and results, it was determined that basically that it had happened. It can just happen. Maybe that's not a very bright way of putting it, but it can evolve, yes.
Yeah, you say you're told a third of the time the deletion is, it's been picked up for the first time in that affected child.
Yes, because I've already got 2 older sons and they were fine. So it doesn't affect the female. My daughter had tests and she's fine. So unfortunately.
They do talk about the female carriers manifesting sometimes, but clearly in your case, it's
No,
something we can look into. There's no family history.
yeah,
We do face that as well when we try to get a family history and somebody said, well, I was adopted. And so that kind of puts us
yeah.
that
How do you cope? I couldn't give any answers because I
yeah,
wasn't getting them off my mum, and she kind of was a bit indignant that, oh, you're trying to say it's my, I don't know. I don't know. So I couldn't provide that
yeah,
information.
just not there. There's not, yeah. Luckily there are tests and
Yes,
when
yes,
your daughter took up the offer to be tested,
as
just
well, yes.
carried it. Was that an easy decision for you to make at the time? Was it nerve-wracking?
Well, by that time, Calum knew he got muscular dystrophy, Duchenne muscular dystrophy. He didn't ever quote to me that he knew what would happen eventually. But he was in agreement because he had to have blood tests as well. Yeah, no, it was difficult, but she was 16.
Okay.
And obviously she was going to go into a relation. I mean, she's had a son and he's fine. So it was imperative that she had this blood test anyway, so she could make a decision if and when she was pregnant and determining what sex was, basically.
But even though Calum was told to have this de novo mutation, which is a deletion starting for the first time, this
Yes.
guilt continued to shadow you. Why did you still feel guilt at that stage?
I don't know if I felt guilt.
Okay.
Well, ask any mother, they want to look after their child. And if their I have read many a time, like, I feel guilty because my son's died, my daughter's died. You feel you could have done something to prevent this, although I know there was nothing that I could do. So it's just these thoughts that go into your head, and you have to like accept, no, it's not your fault. It's happened, and this is it. You have to get on with life then. So it's not guilty because I feel I did anything, right? It's just guilty because he died and I should have been able to prevent it. And we can't. We can't stop death.
So I guess it's that feeling of helplessness, isn't it? My son has this,
Kind of, yes, yes, yes.
and the first surgery he had was, I suppose, back to the orthopedics. He had this tendon repair.
Yeah, he had to go to Birmingham Children's Hospital for that.
Uh,
And he had to have a tendon repair in his ankles because they feel that they would knit together better. And he had to wear these like a boot cast for a few weeks. But it doesn't help ultimately. It just prolongs, basically.
So you also said he had this weakening of the spine, but he never developed scoliosis, which is kind
No,
of a good thing, wasn't it?
it was a good thing because that, as he got older, he didn't have the lung capacity or the heart, so they wouldn't have done anything about it. They couldn't operate anyway. They wouldn't have operated. I mean, a friend of his at the special school, she had scoliosis and she had to go in, and I would take her mum to the hospital. And I thought, I don't want him to go through that. But
Yeah.
luckily or unluckily, he didn't have to, no.
Did he have any other operations along the way apart from
No,
no. Okay.
no, not at all.
And then you mentioned this special school, that's Blackfriars.
Yes,
Did he fare better there than in the
yes,
normal school? Okay.
definitely, yes. Although, like, I do believe, like, the help is offered. They can have a one-to-one in a mainstream school, which ultimately, when we get further on, he did go to college. But at that point, I felt that would be better because they couldn't cope at mainstream school with him. And he was a lot happier, definitely. Yes.
At least, I mean, people there understood his needs and
Well, yes, and they could do the physiotherapy, and he had sweat. That was all part of being at that school, so it was good. And he had for his lifetime friends. you know, so it was a beautiful school, actually. It is a beautiful school, yes.
Is this still there, by the way?
As far as I know, yes. Yeah, yes.
We give them a bit of free advertisement here.
Yes. And, well, his friends still keep in touch with me, so that's how close we were, yes.
That's good. And then you planned a holiday of a lifetime at Disney Resort. And you cited research that showed that more than 70% of children who make a last wish ask to go there. What's so special about it? What is it that
People love Walt Disney. Children love Walt Disney. My granddaughter, who's 4, loves Walt Disney. They love cartoons. So to be able to go there, and have you been? It's a magical place.
haven't been, I have to say, yeah, no.
For adults, it's a magical place.
Mm.
But ultimately, he went to a place called Give Kids the World, and the Royal Variety Club provided the funds to take him. So that was lovely.
And you had a good time.
We did, yes. He loved it.
Maybe I'll find time to visit.
It is a place that Walt Disney provided for children with life-limiting illnesses. So, yeah, everybody was amazing. Yeah, and never forget.
And then you mentioned this, I think it's a Frenchman, Henry Landworth.
I do. Yes, I did.
How did he help? How does he help in wish fulfillment for children? You said
well, I don't really know because I researched that myself, but I think he plowed a lot of money into trying to help children with life-limiting illnesses and created Disney World. As far as I know, I don't really know more than that, to be honest. But he was the basis of what's there now, yes.
Interesting. It's interesting the things that come up when you research things and you find.
Yeah, no, I mean, what an amazing thing to do anyway. Obviously, he had the resources and he obviously got a good heart as well. So
You need the two.
yes.
Okay. And you got involved in charity work yourself. Did this give you kind of a sense of mission? Did you feel this is something I needed to do for Calum or for yourself, or why did you?
Yeah, because can I promote the Cordwell charity?
By all means, do if they're doing
John
good.
Cordwell is a huge businessman, but he formed the Cordwell charity to help initially people in Staffordshire where we live to provide wheelchairs for them, because I'm not a money person. We didn't have the money to kind of buy a state-of-the-art electric wheelchair once Calum was in a wheelchair. The NHS wheelchairs are not very nice. They don't give them any independence, the children any independence. So he'd set up this charity anyway, and he was providing different items for different children, depending on what illness they have. And he's still going now, and he's he's going global and everything. So I was invited to the Cordwell Ball a couple of times, and I thought, Calum was still here at the time, but I just thought I need to, if they're happy for me to, I'm happy to promote the services as well, because not many families knew about it either. It's not something that was broadcast on.
No.
It's word of mouth. A lot of things were word of mouth. And that's how we learned, because you've got the MD group, you've got the Roundwell Trust, you've got other people that can help you. But if you don't know about these things, it as people say, I find out about something, I would tell my friend, look, this is going. And when we're invited to go to Give Kids the World, the gentleman at the time who looked after us said, do you know another family? Which I did. And he actually sent this family to Give Kids the World, Florida as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of things happen through Facebook groups as well. Are you into any of that?
Facebook wasn't. I mean, we're talking
a
long time ago now. So, yeah, no, I don't think it was through Facebook, no. But initially I went to an MD Christmas party, because you learn all these things slowly, that the help's there. And I suppose I just wanted to try and help other people as well, because we've been helped, and to let them know you're not alone. You're not alone at all. And there are people out there that will help you both financially and emotionally.
Then before we go back into the details of the disease itself, you gave Calum, what you said, a lifetime, or you tried to give me a lifetime of memories. And one of these was swimming with dolphins.
Yes.
How did you pull that off? Let me put it that way, with his difficulty.
Well, we did fundraise. The local village fundraised for us as well. We were given various help. So we managed, the consultant who he was under at our local hospital suggested to me that I take him swimming with the dolphins. And I said, look, I don't believe taking him to a pool. They should be out in the sea. You know, I don't really want to do that. I don't agree with it. You know, no matter, I want to give him an experience. But so she said no. She told me about this place called Eilat in Israel.
Okay.
So that's where we went. How did we could carry him into the water, and he had to learn to snorkel.
Okay.
I don't know if you've snorkeled initially. I have, but you know, initially it's really like, it can be like, whoa, because you've got a mask on your face and you've got to breathe underwater through your tube. So he did learn to snorkel, because the people there had not been presented with this either. And there was a gentleman over there who promoted the holidays, and he had a lot to do with it. So he came down onto the beach, and the staff there didn't really know how to treat it, but they were excellent. And they said, please, we need him to learn to snorkel first. And then they took him out in the ocean when he did. How brave is that, you know, to go out in the sea with two people you don't really know? But they were lovely. The Israeli people were lovely. And when a dolphin came up to him, which he did, they choose to come to you. And I think they do go to people with who have got illnesses, or pregnant ladies, they do, and stuff like that. So, and they pulled his hand up and let him stroke the dolphin. I'm not going to cry, I'm going to stay. But yes, it was amazing. It was beautiful. There's some lovely people out there. There really are. I actually went back to see them afterwards. So, yeah. I suppose it was to give Calum that experience, but it was also to give me the memories, my family as well, you know, to cope afterwards.
And to share it as well, to encourage other people, as you've done in the book.
Yes.
The things that are possible.
Yes, and then they are possible. Yes, you can do it if you've got the strength to do it. Not everybody has the strength. I don't think, no.
It's true. At least it's good to know that these are the possibilities.
Yes.
Some of the big problems with Duchenne is problems with the heart and with breathing.
Yes.
Did Calum ever have any problems with his heart or with breathing?
He used to have asthma. He used to have to, and I can't remember what it's called, but I used to take him to the GP to help him to breathe. What is that? What they give them?
Inhalers, is it?
Well, he had inhalers anyway, but sorry, I can't think at the minute.
Or nebulizers?
Oh, yes, nebulizer. That's it. Thank you.
I had to scratch my head.
It's age. It's an age thing. So I used to take him to the GP for a nebulizer, because his breathing would get really horrific at times. Not all the time, you know, it was infrequent, but it did. And as far as his heart, I don't think he didn't have that many appointments. Afterwards, I felt that he didn't really have the care, but then I would placate my feelings and say, well, what could they do?
Yeah.
Have done anyway, you know, so.
But I suspect if he did have it, he probably would have manifested with evidence of heart muscle,
Yeah.
which probably didn't happen with him.
No. So I didn't want him to put him through anyway, unnecessary pain that wouldn't change the outcome.
I mean, one of the first treatments to show any benefit in Duchenne muscular dystrophy is steroids. I'm not sure whether at the time these were,
Yes.
was he given any steroids for?
Yes, he was, yes. Well, not to take every day, but when his breathing problems
So
started, then he
mainly
was
for the
given
breathing.
steroids.
Okay.
Yes.
Not for the Duchenne itself. Not
No,
no. Okay.
no.
Because there's evidence that it seems to slow down the muscle breakdown. So a lot in the young age now, they tend to start people on oral steroids.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Uh, we're going back to guilt again, which you mentioned. Guilt associated with such a diagnosis as Duchenne's. Um, and one of the things you talked about was for people to find resolve and respite from guilt. I suppose you're talking to other families that are affected with this condition.
Yes.
Well,
Yes. Because I might be wrong, but I believe that all families would feel that initially. I don't know if it's not in the family, if it's not hereditary, then you don't know, do you? You don't know. If it is hereditary, you have a choice to have another child or have a child. I mean, I know some families that had 3 boys and 3 boys have got Duchenne. Personally, I wouldn't take that chance.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
It's difficult, but it's not my choice. I'm not here to judge, you know.
Yeah. So you said even though you knew Duchenne was life limiting, it still came to you as a shock when death came to Calum. Um, did
Yeah.
you did you ever prepare? You never prepared yourself for the possibility, or was it kind of unexpected at the time he died?
It was unexpected, but how you can prepare as much as you want, that will not make any difference. It's like dementia. You've got 2 deaths because you're losing the person and then you lose them physically. No, you cannot prepare, but it did happen quite quickly. So I had no pre-warning, which was probably, looking back, a good thing. I wouldn't like to have seen him suffer either. So, you know, he woke up on a Saturday morning. By 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, he passed over. He just said, I can't breathe. So we got into hospital, and to be honest, they didn't even ask me if he had a condition until they would allow me to go to the bed to see him, and which was at the last minute. And I just put my arms around him and said, no, I love you, kind of thing. So then they asked me what was wrong with, well, he had Duchenne dystrophy. But maybe because in the heat of the moment, they were trying to revive him. I don't go down that path. I don't want to go down that path, but I'm not apportioning blame.
But it wasn't a painful, long, drawn-out process. Thank
No,
you.
no. And maybe, I don't know if that's better or worse, but I didn't want him to suffer. I really didn't. So now I can say, yes, I'm glad, inverted commas, that he passed over that way. But because it was so quick, because he'd been watching the telly and playing his sports games in the morning, you know, it's hard to go back home and think, oh God, you know, this is true, this has really happened. So yeah.
And I don't know whether it's still the case, but it took a long time. You kept his room as it was, I understand, his clothes.
Not really, not that long, no.
Okay.
To be honest, I gave a lot of his possessions to his best friends, because he used to have two friends over every weekend, and they used to have a little party and play on the Xbox at that time and go on the computer. So yeah, they still keep in touch.
And how have you coped since then? How you still carry on working? You're still working at this stage?
Yes. No,
Uh,
I enjoy work. I do enjoy work, and I need to keep my brain active. And especially after having a stroke or minor stroke not long ago, is it? I feel now, or have felt for a long, long time, that life is for living. We know that. We know it's too short. And I do, I just got so much to do. But when it's my time, it's my time. And I know I will see him again. So that helps. I know in myself I will see him again. So that keeps me happy.
good.
And I've got other family, got other
Yeah.
children to look after. Not so young now.
Yes, I was about to say that.
Yeah, but my little granddaughter, I knew what she's 4, so she's my friend, and obviously, yeah, there's a lot of beauty out there. You
Life,
know,
life.
everything happens for a reason, I believe,
Good.
and it's how we cope with that reason. I say I've had radiotherapy, I've had a stroke, but you're not keeping me down.
Obviously not.
No, no. I
Okay.
like to travel.
Good. Still making memories, isn't it?
Yeah, still making memories. I like to give my family memories because it's important for them as well. I like to write. I like my poetry, so I can smile. I can smile when I talk about Calum because he was a beautiful person and he has helped me to evolve into the person I am now. That's how I look at it.
A positive outlook, absolutely.
Yes.
So I suspect that's one of the lessons you want readers to take from the book. Are there any other key ones you would say, top 2 lessons any reader should take away from your book?
That there is life after death. One of the things that helped me as well is my son, because I've been quite an outgoing person anyway, would not have wanted me to sit in that house crying. I'm not saying I could do that initially, but after a while I thought, well, if I want him to be happy where I believe he is, then I need to be happy. So yes, I would say to people, okay, it's hard. It really, really is hard, but try to move forward. To appreciate that you've had this person in your life. If you don't move forward, I don't know if everybody can. I don't know. We're all made up differently, aren't we? But I would hope that they can see there's a beauty in life as well.
I think that's an important lesson. And it may not be a fair question, the next one.
Oh dear.
Having been in the Duchenne muscular dystrophy world,
Yes.
what do you think are the major uncertainties about the disease or kind of questions that haven't been answered about it?
I think that perhaps, but this is my experience, and it was like over 20 years, 2005, yes. That's when he passed, but you're not sat down and really explained a lot. I'm a person who likes to know and I will ask and ask and ask. But at that point, I couldn't ask, obviously. And now I feel, do I need to ask now? But for other families, I would say really speak to your consultant and let them explain
Detail.
the small bits about it, that because I felt very much alone at times. I don't. And I remember one time him being in hospital and he developed a temperature and they sent, oh, you need to take him home. And this was like a new hospital because he was more or less classed as an adult then. And it was quite a way away. And my daughter was with me and we took him home or started to take him home. Then he had trouble breathing. He didn't have a cold. Luckily that time he came through it. So I don't think enough's explained, but whether that's changed now, I really can't speak on that topic. I don't know.
It's it wasn't a fair question, but
No, it is a fair question, but I can only look back to me, and it was a while ago. So whether
I guess it
there's
would have
new strategies now or whatever, I don't know.
a lot of people with this diagnosis now will go through a lot of pre-test counseling, post-test
No,
counseling.
I was never offered that.
Yeah,
No.
detailed leaflets and talks about what to expect and what the support is out there. I think there's a lot of that going on now. So,
Well, that's good because that wasn't offered to me. In fact, I actually went to university, was accepted to do a counselling course. I don't know, I was older, but still, I can't remember what, it wasn't that long ago. And that really helped me because to be a counsellor, you have to be counselled. And they had my innermost thoughts, and these are people that are friends for life now as well, all my life. And that helped me to resolve a lot of my issues, yes. So counselling, to me, if people were offered counselling initially, that would be an amazing experience to be offered. I think it's needed, yes.
yeah, I believe it's now standard for practically all.
Good, yeah.
Okay. The next one, I don't know whether it's a fair question. Are there any three books you would like to recommend, either about the disease or the brain, or about any of the themes you've talked about in your book?
No, because I haven't read any of them, to be honest. I just wanted to write my book on my experience. So I'm extremely happy that I did. And it was hard at times because I had to go back into the annals of time and open that pain up again, but I thought, out of fairness to you, son, I need to do this. Just something I found needs, and it helped me. It did. It was really, really an amazing experience to be able to write it. Self-published, but it's there for people if they want to read it.
Yes, I'm glad I discovered it.
Yeah, well, you quite shocked me when you got in touch with me, but yes, that was lovely.
Well, you have a book on poems, is it? Do you want to say a quick word about it?
That book basically is about my earth angels and the people that I call them earth angels, and I feel these are people that have been by my side, and they're not necessarily people that I've known a long time, but they know Annie, and it's lovely to have these friendships. And it's about some of my experiences, spiritual experiences, and it's about my poetry that I believe is spiritual poetry. I know it is, basically. But the words flowed more freely after losing Calum because it was obviously personal. Some of them are very personal to our experiences together since he's passed on. I don't write every day and I don't write poetry every day, but sometimes it comes to me and I just have to write it down.
It's good. Well, I'm glad you published it. It's out there. I've got it. I've gone through it as well. I think it's worthy as well. You don't count yourself as a professional writer.
I'm not.
No. Okay. Annie Stubbs, thank you very much for participating in this episode of the Neurology Lounge podcast. I'm most grateful. And to my audience, thank you as well for either watching or listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed it and you've read Annie's book, you might also consider my book called Surfing the Brain. It's a bit of light touch neurology. And if you want a bit of the hard stuff, then my website, Neuro Checklist, is there as well. And to make sure you don't miss the next episode of the podcast, why not subscribe to the podcast iTunes, YouTube, or Spotify channels. But until then, thank you very much for joining me. And Annie, thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you.